Radium bromide is page 27. It's a very deep acting remedy, radium bromide, and I will say it's a remedy for the 21st century, right? Because we live in a world where there is excess of radiation, or you are blessed with radiation from all corners. Sometimes we get direct effects from it, sometimes we are unable to understand what effects develop, but sometimes less, sometimes more, we all have to bear the brunt of radiation. And radium bromide can be prescribed for direct effects of radiation as well. Now when we come to radium bromide, you got that handout? You see the color in the background is yellow. Why is it yellow? Because there is a lot of psychotic preponderance in radium bromide. You see here examples of radiation hazards, radiation from computer screens, security monitors, mobile phones, living near high voltage towers, airports, landing and takeoff zones, fluorescent lighting, radiotherapy. So there are varieties of radiation hazards which an individual is exposed to in his lifetime. And you see, especially we have mentioned hazards with which people have to deal with day in, day out. So A, you have to put the etiology, which is a radiation hazard on one hand, and then weigh and see the manifestations or expressions which develop as a consequence of radiation hazards. You are with me? You cannot just prescribe radium bromide that he is okay, he is exposed to radiation for a long time, let me give him a radium bromide. No, it's not like that. Again, you see, any medicine I've shared with you, I've always shared, you weigh where on one hand there is etiology, on the other hand there is the expression or the manifestation. If you have that combination and that matches, then you prescribe, go ahead with the medicine. That is same with radium bromide. So, you know, you'll see many people across the world, they have a tendency to prescribe radium just for bad effects of radiation, irrespective of what manifestation may develop. But that's not always the case how it should be, right? You see here examples of radiation, screening monitors, airports, repeated X-rays. You know, if you think of people who are working in the IT industry, exposed to the computer for 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day. Think of people who live near the airport zones, landing zone, takeoff zone, high radiation in those areas. People who live near mobile phone towers, radiation factories, there's high exposure to radiation, right? Think of people who are working as lab technicians, right? And in the ultrasound, in the X-rays, again high exposure to radiation, right? So that's one of the important factors. Now when you look at the physical clinicals of radium bromide, on one hand you see I mentioned osteoarthritis, rheumatism, rheumatoid arthritis. You understand radium is prepared from the radiation. So it's a very penetrating aspect, penetrating thing which is prepared from. And therefore radium bromide is very useful in diseases which are long standing, which are very deep and penetrating. You think of a case of rheumatoid arthritis where there is a lot of deformity, where there is a lot of structural changes, right? If you come to the joints here, a lot of aching all over in radium bromide. You see severe aching pain all over the body, aching pain in joints, aching pains with restlessness, that's very important. Aching pain with sore muscles. So think someone working in the computer, in front of the computer for long hours and he's having aches and pains all over. So, you know, if you think of a case of fibromyalgia, we call that as fibromyalgia, right? And muscle pains, fibrous tissue pains, aches and pains all over the body. Along with that there is restlessness, along with that there is soreness. Radium bromide is so much indicated. Think of a case of osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, where there is severe muscle pains, along with that there is bone pains. And they are better by hot bath. Better by hot bath. It has the same modality like Rustox. Aggravation first, motion better by continued motion. We wake up in the morning, the aches and pains is severe, the soreness is severe, the restlessness is severe. They start walking for some time, the soreness, the restlessness starts to get better. So aggravation first motion, better by continued motion, you have that with radium bromide, like Rostox. And that's why never forget this chain for radium bromide. Rostox, Calcarea, fluor, radium. Rostox, Calcarea, fluor, medorinum. Rostox, Calcarea, fluor, thuya. Or even Rostox followed by radium. This can also be a chain. You understand what I mean? Rostox, Calcarea, this is a wonderful chain in osteoarthritis. We'll talk about that when we talk about Calcarea, fluor, but also do acknowledge this: Rostox, Calcarea, fluor, radium, Rostox, Calcarea, fluor, medorinum, Rostox, Calcarea, fluor, thuya. And Rostox followed by radium is also a very good chain. Why Rostox followed by radium? Three things if you have a look here. Aches and pains. You remember Rostox has a lot of aches and pains. That's important for Rostox. If you think number two, lot of restlessness. You have that in Rostox. You have that in radium bromide. Number three, if you see the same modality, waking up first time in the morning, aggravation first motion, better by continued motion, you have that in radium and Rostox. And number four, they're both better by hot bath. Warm bath makes both of them better, right? Rostox was better by hot bath, radium bromide better by hot bath as well. So that combination of symptoms is very, very decisive for a radium bromide prescription. You're with me? So you'll see many cases where you have started with Rostox. You think of a case of ankylosing. You know, he's so stiff, wakes up in the morning, the stiffness is better. Continues motion, the stiffness gets better. Hot bath, that makes them better. They've tried Rostox, 30C, 200C, 1M. Patient is much better, but obviously it hasn't cured the case because it is a very deep acting disease and Rostox hasn't got the depth to finish the case. So you have to follow it up with a deep acting remedy, which in this case is radium bromide. It will take care of the stiffness, it will take care of the first motion, better by continued motion, it will take care of the better by hot bath. You with me? So that's important for your radium. So aching with restlessness, aching with soreness, better by hot bath, you can add here aggravation first motion, better continued motion. Chronic rheumatism when Rostox fails but when standstill. You have this in the handout? Yeah. Yeah. When Rostox fails or improved but then standstill. So Rostox followed by radium is such a useful chain. Please do remember that. Aching with cracking. What do you mean by cracking? Aching with cracking. What is cracking? Cracking? Yes, the sound in the joints. Medicine? Benzoic acid, yes, correct. Remember medicine for gout, benzoic acid. Whenever they cracking in the joints, whenever they move, that's you have in benzoic acid. Right? So aches and pains is very important for your radium bromide. So the chain, please do not forget it. Rostox, radium is a very useful chain. Rostox, medorinum, Rostox, thuya is also very, very important chain. Pains, if you see here, better by hot bath, better by continued motion. Those two are very important modalities for radium. Better by hot bath, better by continued motion. Got it? Two very important modalities for your radium bromide. No. So any joint disease, you see again where you have the combination of symptoms, where there is restlessness, where there is soreness, aching pains, like the muscles aches and pains. You have that so common with people who are working sitting in front of the computer for long hours. With the modality, they'll tell you when I wake up first time in the morning, the stiffness is so much, the aching is so much. I do a bit of exercise, I walk about, I go for a jog, I feel better. So better by continued motion. I come back before I go to work, I take a hot bath, that makes me feel better. By the end of the day, I again have this because I'm exposed to radiation for such a long time. And that makes radium bromide a fantastic medicine. Now you have to repeat 30, 200, 1M.
The facilitating factor is still there.
Yes, so that it will take care and it will make the system adjust to that radiation as well. So although the maintaining cause is still there, it will help you in taking care of the adverse effects of that maintaining cause. So it may not completely cure him, but will definitely take care of the adverse effects of the maintaining cause. So that's about radium. If we come to the skin aspect of radium bromide, there's another very useful area for radium bromide. Joint wise, I will say it's more psychotic because there's more aches and pains, muscles are involved, restlessness is there. So that's more psychotic in terms of joints. But when you come to the skin aspect of, or the skin of radium bromide, it has a combination of psychosis and syphilis. And why is that? You will see on the top I have mentioned after radiation therapy, burning of skin. So the skin is burning completely as if on fire, and burning is always syphilitic. You got that in the handout? Burning as if on fire, burning is always syphilitic, right? And even that burning in radium bromide will be better by warmth, better by heat. Hot bath makes them better. And the medicine? Arsenic, yes. So you see in skin, arsenic followed by radium is a good choice because you are burning in arsenic, you are burning in radium. Better by heat in arsenic, better by heat in radium. You have restlessness in arsenic, you have restlessness in radium as well. Also you have weakness in arsenic, you have weakness in radium. You know, as a consequence, I haven't mentioned that to you earlier, as a consequence of the exposure to radiation, extreme weakness, chronic fatigue syndrome. You understand what I mean? So you see, whenever you come down to the skin, joints, it is more aching, more restlessness. When you come to the skin, it's more burning sensation. And that burning is better by heat. That makes it a good remedy as a follow-up to arsenic. Burning better by heat with weakness, with restlessness. And that combination is very characteristic for arsenic, for radium as well. So burning of skin as if on fire. Skin itching all over with ulceration takes long time to heal. So lot of ulceration in radium bromide as well. Better by heat. Hot makes them better. You're with me? Ulceration better by heat. Hot makes them better. That's important for your radium. Ulcer better by cold? Ulcer better by cold. Just ulcer. Ulceration better by cold. Last year, an acid. Fluoric acid. Hot syphilitic, fluoric acid. Any ulcer which is better by cold application, that's fluoric acid. It's complementary to silica. Silica is ulcer better by heat. But in case of fluoric acid, the ulceration is better by cold. Remember pulsatilla, silica, fluoric acid. That's the chain. Pulsatilla, silicea, fluoric acid. In silicea, you have an ulcer better by heat. In fluoric acid, you have an ulcer better by cold. But silicea is a chilly syphilitic. Fluoric acid is a hot syphilitic. You understand what I mean? Silicea, chilly syphilitic with ulcerations better by cold, better by heat. I'm sorry. whereas in fluoric acid it's a hot syphilitic with ulcerations, better by cold application. Okay, so a lot of ulcerations, that's important. So you see this, if you see the top picture, there is some dryness as well, but there is ulceration as well. So in that way, the skin is sometimes very syphilitic in terms of radium bromide. Lot of ulcer, lot of burning, but better by heat, better by heat, better by heat. That's important. Second aspect of radium is the psychotic component. So as a consequence of radiation therapy, sitting in front of long hours, you are working in the security area in the airport where there's a lot of radiation as well. You develop lots of moles, you develop lots of skin tags, you develop lots of warts as a consequence of that. And so that's a psychotic expression of radium bromide, where there are lots of warts, lot of skin tags and lots of moles as a consequence of radium therapy. You got this in the handout? Anywhere. Anywhere. Even if the part is not exposed to radiation, they may develop there. You got it? Nevi, what is nevi? Sorry? What is nevi? Sorry? Black or brown color, yeah, like a skin tag.
Oh, okay.
Nevi, birthmarks, depigmentation or hyperpigmentation, skin tags. You know, you'll get what more? Is it more depigmentation or more hyperpigmentation? More what?
Sorry.
Radium bromide? Will you get more hyperpigmentation or more depigmentation? You understand depigmentation is like vitiligo, discoloration. You can get both actually because it is psychotic and syphilitic in terms of skin. So you can get depigmentation, you can get hyperpigmentation as well. I've seen so many people, you know, believe me, who started working in any radiation related job, they develop severe weakness, they develop aches and pains and a lot of skin tags, warts have come up. And that combination again is typical for radium bromide. You understand what I mean? Chronic fatigue syndrome, combine that with aches and pains, fibromyalgia, and in the background there is warts, moles, skin tags, hyperpigmentation which develop along with that. Right? So warts, skin tags, all can develop for radium bromide. In the background, that is important. Could be chronic fatigue syndrome, the weakness you see I've highlighted +++, or it could be restlessness in terms of the fibromyalgia, the aches and pains. You're with me? So when you come to skin, you see you're getting two biphasic reaction. One is syphilitic. What is syphilitic? A lot of burning, a lot of ulceration, right? Better by heat, right? You're getting psychotic as well. What is psychotic? More skin tags, warts, hyperpigmentation. So that you can get in radium bromide as well. So the joints or the rheumatic areas are more psychotic, but the skin can be psychotic or syphilitic or both. Therapeutic areas. Consequences of radiation hazards or NBWS. Joint pains with aching pains all over plus modalities. What is the modality? And better by continued motion. Aggravation, first motion. Chronic fatigue syndrome I shared with you, weakness which is resulting after the radiation. Skin tags, nevi, so pigmentation, skin tags, and itching and burning in the skin. You have that in the handout towards the end next.
Okay.
Got it?
It's a
So you see, it's such a beautiful medicine, radium bromide.
So it has to be the first one is a cause, first bullet.
Yes, is the
and
cause.
And
Second
to fifth
is the manifestation. Yes, yes. So you see, mostly if you think cause is radiation, expression is on the particular plane through skin and joints, right? Skin, I will say, and musculoskeletal, because muscles and joints are involved, right? Skin, musculoskeletal. And what is the general expression or general reaction? Weakness. Yes, weakness and restlessness. So chronic fatigue syndrome with restlessness can be a general reaction. You understand what I mean? The particular reaction is skin and musculoskeletal, right? Whereas the general reaction is debility, weakness. So that's important for radium bromide. Now there is another very interesting area where you can think of radium bromide, and this is one area which I'd like to share with you. Radium bromide has the capability of surfacing suppression. So what do you mean by that? If you see deep-seated drug-dependent chronic complaints which are predominantly psychotic. So if you think of any artificial chronic disease, drug-dependent disease, I want you to understand this really well. Think of a deep chronic, artificially chronic disease. So the patient is on conventional medication for a long time, and especially if it is a psychotic disease where the patient is on conventional medication. Examples, if you see, I mentioned here steroid dependent RA. So rheumatoid arthritis, where there is a lot of psychotic symptoms and they are steroid dependent. Beta blocker dependent hypertension. So hypertension, you know, is psychotic, right? High blood pressure, that's psychotic, excess, and the patient is on beta blockers. So a psychotic disease where the patient is on medicines, conventional medicine, thereby causing psychotic suppression. You understand what I mean? So that's the premise. I'm talking about diseases where there is a lot of psychotic symptoms, patient has been on conventional medication for a long time, and as a result, this is the natural disease, this is the superimposed artificial chronic disease. So not getting a clear picture of the natural disease, and especially if it is psychotic. You understand what I mean? So steroid dependent RA, beta blocker dependent hypertension with a history of radiation exposure, that is important. So yeah, you see, I'm having a combination of three things here. A, I'm talking about psychotic disease where the patient has been on conventional medication, right? A psychotic disease. B, psychotic disease where the patient has been on conventional medication. And C, there has been a history of exposure to radiation. So three combination is important. Psychotic disease. So think of ADHD. Patient has been on Ritalin. So psychotic disease on conventional medication. B. C, there has been a prolonged history of exposure to radiation, right? In that, you see, so these three factors, when well selected medicine fails or there is no movement of symptoms, radium surfaces suppression and initiates the movement of symptoms. So you understand what I mean? I'm talking about psychotic diseases where the patient has been on conventional medication for a long time, and there has been a history of exposure to radiation. So it's a cocktail. In that combination, you're not getting clear picture of the disease. You think of one-sided disease, 173, where there is one or two symptoms which are obscure. You're not getting a good picture of the disease, right? Thereby, if you prescribe a radium bromide, it will help bring more symptoms to the surface. You remember in one-sided case, you gave a remedy, new symptoms appear, that's a good sign, and that will help you in making a better second prescription. You see, radium surface suppression initiates the movement of symptoms. Example, some sensational modalities become prominent, then will lead to a constitutional medicine. You need at least 3 symptoms, 3 legs for a table to stand for prescribing in these type of one-sided cases. Organon 172 to 178. That's why many authors have mentioned, and you will find that being verified as well. Even nosodes like carcinosin, nosodes like medorinum have failed. Radium bromide has helped. Provided you get this triad. What is the triad? Long-standing psychotic disease, patient has been on long-standing medication, and thirdly, history of exposure to radiation. I know it's difficult to find that 3 together, but if and when you find that, you cannot ignore radium bromide.
3 together.
So hypertension, so think of a person who is working in the airport security zone, and he is extremely hypertensive, right, and he has been on beta blockers for the last 10-15 years. He has come to you with very obscure symptoms, not getting a clear picture. So that 3 factors in the background, you give a dose of radium bromide to help movement, to bring movement in that case, bring more symptoms to the surface, and then you can go ahead with your constitutional prescription. Or, you know, sometimes I have seen this combination and the patient has a lot of weakness, just undefined weakness in the background. There also radium bromide, if you give, it will take care of the weakness, also it will help in bringing more symptoms to the surface.
Because nowadays radiation
Is common.
so the third one, exposure to radiation exposure is because we all
Yeah, but you have to combine that, you know, with the psychotic disease, and there has been a psychotic medication, and I will say you can add another one is the weakness. The weakness is important for radium.
because you traveling with the underground in Thailand, you have to expose the radiation.
But I understand that, but I will say only give importance to that, especially if it is related with any occupation, right? That's the best way. Like, I know Wi-Fi is everywhere and radiation is everywhere, but try and correlate a radium bromide prescription specially, and it acts much more better if it is related with any occupation, right?
Asthma have the classical steroid.
But asthma is not always psychotic. Asthma can be psoric, asthma can be syphilitic as well, right? I'm talking about only psychotic diseases which are predominantly psychotic, right?
So you
But I will say also weakness has to be there in the background for radium bromide
at
prescription.
least 3 symptoms for prescribed.
Whenever you give radium bromide, you get more symptoms to the surface. So when you get more symptoms, you can make a better constitutional prescription. So psychotic disease, Psychotic
medication.
conventional medication, exposure to radiation, and debility in the background, weakness.
History of radiation exposure is the same. Of exposure to radiation.
And weakness.
4 again.
Yeah. Clinical tips. When well-selected indicated medicines fails to cure mixed miasmatic conditions, after failure of nosodes like medorinum, syphilinum, it should be thought of. You see, so it's this paragraph emphasizes the depth of the action of radium bromide. Even nosodes like medorinum and syphilinum have failed, radium bromide can come to the rescue, right? Provided you have the combination of symptoms. Old, obstinate, long-standing ulcer. You have that in the handout? No?
Yeah. Which one? 11.
Yeah, point number 11, clinical tips. Old, obstinate, long-standing ulcers caused by cases of rodent ulcers. What are rodent ulcers? Easy? Not easy, non-healing. Also, rodent ulcers are more in this area. These area, yes. face. Basal cell carcinoma, right? That's a rodent ulcer in the face. Very non-healing obstinate ulcers. Case caused by radium burn, which take a long time to heal. Better by heat. Can you tell me another medicine? Long-standing ulcers for a long time, can be painful, can be painless. Senile ulcers. Senile ulcers. No? Tarantula cubensis. We did tarantula last year. Have a quick look in Borike. Tarantula cubensis. Yeah, there can be the pains of death, but you also have senile ulcers and tarantula cubensis. Have a quick look in Borike. Tarantula cubensis. Yes. But also even ulcers, senile means which has been there for a long time. Tarantula. On the skin, I think it mentions senile ulcers. Got it? Senile ulcers. Okay, so long-standing ulcers, even tarantula cubensis can help. Do remember fluoric acid as well. Fluoric acid is a very important ulcer medicine. Any type of ulceration which are better by cold, fluoric acid can help. Fluoric acid. Hot syphilitic fluoric acid. Fluoric. Hot F-L-U-O-R-I-C. Fluoric acid. Very important from the acid group. It's only syphilitic acid. Okay. So, old obstinate ulcers, long-standing ulcers, rodent ulcers. You got tarantula, senile ulcers. Hot patients with a lot of syphilitic symptoms, ulcerations better by cold. Male sepia, you remember fluoric acid is a male sepia. Indifferent, high sexual desire. Kent mentions that, male sepia. So, coming back, aching pains all over the body, wonderful medicine for osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. Sitting in front of the computers for hours and hours, aches and pains. So, sitting in, you see again occupational hazard. You're sitting in front of the computer, you're getting weakness. So, chronic fatigue syndrome, you're getting fibromyalgia, aches and pains. So that combination is important for radium brom. Urticaria better by bathing in hot water, very, very important. So, even ulcers are better in hot water, urticaria in hot water. So, you think of a case of Rostox. So, you think of herpes where you are prescribed Rostox. You are prescribed for urticaria, Rostox. But then patient has improved, it's coming back. You can finish the case with radium bromide. So, joints, it follows Rostox. Even skin, it follows Rostox. Remember herpes for Rostox, vesicles. It can follow Rostox as well. Predominantly psychotic. That's important for radium bromide. Very, very important psychotic medicine. Skin can be syphilitic, but joints are generally psychotic.